get coaches together for any length of time and there's any practice element involved, usually what the majority of coaches say is what we loved most, or what got us the most value, or what was most enjoyable is the practice part, right? Seeing somebody do a coaching session, trying out coaching ourselves, but really it's the connecting theory to practice. And I've noticed that now it's more, I mean, thanks to the AC, there's a big library of coaching demos. On YouTube, it's a pretty hit and miss. In my experience, more miss than hit to get something that is really valuable and helpful to see coaching. And what's entirely missing, maybe not entirely, but it's very rare, is that you get a chance to talk to the coach afterwards and the client perhaps as well and say, what was going through your mind there? How did you come up with that question? What kind of model were you following? What was operating in the background? So the idea of running a coaching lab, not just for one session, but for a whole entire journey, is that you get to be there throughout the chemistry call, throughout the contracting. You have plenty of time to just go do coaching